What is up, bros? Josh here. In today's video, we're going over the Tier 7 currently work in progress tech tree battleship, the Sinop, and this is where this line starts to get its bow and tankiness that this line is kind of going to be known for and loved for. But the Sinop at Tier 7, again, Tier 7, a very competitive tier when it comes to both tech tree ships as well as premium ships. There's lots of good, tried and true ships. So again, to stand out just like the Tier 6, to stand out at this tier, it requires something special, which I think this ship does bring. But this is the first one outside of the Tier 5 and Tier 6. This is where you start to get that real front-end style, that bow tanky style, but punished on broadsides, and we'll kind of get into why that when we show some gameplay. But the actual ship itself, a very unique looking ship, almost kind of like a Dunkirk in a way with the back turret. It's kind of this weird looking Russian ship. It kind of almost looks like the Tier 6 forward, but then you get to the side and there's a lot missing when it comes to it. But the HP itself, 65,000, so on the higher end. If we look at something like the Nagato right there as well. So a very tanky ship with a pretty dang big health pool. You're going to be able to use that and abuse that when it comes to it. Now, torpedo armament or torpedo protection 16%, but the armor layout, this is what I'm talking about with the super tankiness that comes with this ship. And as you can see, tons of plating all over the place. Now, again, when you are broadside, you will be taking big hits, but it's when you're bow in, basically just the forend plating of the high side, but everything else will be able to bounce both a lot of battleships as well as almost all cruiser AP when it comes to being bowing in and really trying to be able to wreck everything else. Again, very, very flat on the sides, not much really there, and you will be taking big salvos. But when it comes to actually bowing in and using this, man, you're going to be able to bounce so much. So if you are seeing this go against the forend plating, once they get saturated, then you need to get on the side or get some help from some friends because it's going to kind of laugh at you. But it's these big actual platings of these 100mm 125s, and this 300 that you're just going to have a tough time penning outside of some like Yamato size shell. 406s though, a pretty typical size when it comes to this tier. We're seeing some 410s, 406s, but you are getting into that big boy shell when it comes to this. So not only is that going to help this ship actually up tier, but it's going to help you actually pick on anything and get a bit more advantageous when ships are bow in or not really giving you the best side of angles. So when you get those 356s that the Tier 6 has, or other ships at this tier that have those smaller calibers, they tend to have a problem against ships that aren't giving them perfect broadsides or fairly decent angles. This one, you're going to be able to start lull penning a lot of stuff with this tier. I mean, not all battleships, but if something's not really giving you the best shot, you're going to be able to use that 12-kilometer buff range, that cruiser-like accuracy, which we'll give an example of really quick right here. So here you are in the training room with the Sinop, the Tier 7 Russian battleship, and as you can see, I did do a quick test here, but forgot to hit the record button, so we're going to do it now for sure, but this is the test. I've been doing this on all the Russian battleships of outside the 12-kilometer buff that the Russian battleships get, and then inside. Remember, these are 406s, so you will be able to get rewarded more if something is bow in compared to the lower tiers. We're getting into those big boy shells, and so here we'll get a quick example of a outside 12-kilometer with the dispersion, so this is pretty typical. Now, Pensacola is just one I had to kind of choose that is going to be one you'll probably see, but also one I can get detection in. And, well, the dispersion was all right there. I think we got a little robbed on that. We'll do one more salvo, though. But as you can see, it's not quite as, I would say, outside the range, not quite as accurate as the other ones. Obviously, there were some stragglers around that salvo. We'll do another one just to show it, though, because I feel like we want to see those big old Citadel ribbons. But still, broadside Pensacola is just one that we use to give us the detection. But you will be getting lots of cruisers that are typically broadside. Here we go on one more salvo, see if we get another good example. So that one's pretty dang good right there, but you can see that a lot of them are a tad high or a tad low, and there we go. So still outside of that 12-kilometer range, you will get a bit more of inconsistency. That's one thing I started to know, or started to notice when I was playing the higher tier ones more than the lower tier ones, because you only have the 9 shells, but they are bigger. So they tend to do more damage when they do hit, and still are battleships when they come down. When it comes down to it, you can still get dev strikes with or without the buff. We'll do one at the 8-kilometer, do a quick test just to show what you can actually do when something is in range, and getting that cruiser-like dispersion. Again, pretty similar, but right there you will be doing some damage as well. So outside of the range, inside, you will get some inconsistencies outside of the 12-kilometer range, but still, those 406s don't really care. And man, this is still going to slap no matter what when it comes to it, because you do get rewarded with the bigger caliber shells. But with that accuracy and the 406 caliber shell with the 30-second reload, again, fast turrets, this is something that kind of stands out when it is this battleship, and this battleship line tends to be extremely fast turrets. You'll be using them to basically get into brawling situations. Again, hoping not to get into the really close range where you need to get give up your broadside to hopefully get those shots on. But fast turret traverse, this one is one that took a little while to get used to compared to the others because it has one of the slowest trajectories of this tier at 766 meters per second. So it does take a little while to get used to because it's just going to be a tad of a lofty shell. That's one thing I noticed instantly. So travel time will be a little bit longer, but 33 seconds at 406 millimeters at 17.8 kilometers. So again, on the lower end for range when it comes to this. Secondary armaments, again, Russian line will not be known for its secondaries, but if you are getting close, they will definitely pop off and start doing some damage. AA, this is the rating. Again, we will check out the captain build I'm going with right now. And again, I am running the work in progress ship, so I tend to get focused a tad. This is how it's going to be for basically all of these, but I tend to get focused just a tad more than normal ships, so I picked the AA. Again, something I'd probably pick up is the basic firing training, drop that for superintendent, and then the advanced firing training for fire prevention. That's pretty normal when it comes to this ship. Again, if you can pick up one of the Russian premium captains, pick it up for preventive maintenance, and both expert marksmanship will definitely help a lot, and does have the high alert captain bonus if you want that. I still like the concealment because it is nice to go undetected. Again, for the modules, this is what I'm running for this ship. The main armament mod 1, fire prevention. Again, you only have so many repairs, so the damage control system mod 1, I am taking the higher AA because with aiming system it does help outside 12 kilometers, but you're really trying to punish within that 12 kilometers. And tier 7, you're going to have smaller maps still. Yes, you will go against tier 9s, but you are going to have those smaller mid-tier maps that can definitely help you out. And then damage control system mod 2 to make those fires last for as short as possible. So going for that survivability build, again, we'd probably switch over some captain skills to help out. But premium on everything. This one does come with a fighter plane. No spotter, though, so that does help against CVs. 3 heals. This is the bonus, or the premium, and then 4 repairs. So this is why superintendent will be really good to give you just a little bit extra health. But again, the AA is a pretty solid. I was shooting out some planes. It's not going to be Scharnhorst level AA, but you are definitely going to be able to ping some planes out of the sky. Maneuverability, 29 knots, 960 meters for the turning radius, 12.9 rudder shift, and then 13.1 kilometers for detection by sea, and that is with concealment. Let's dive into some gameplay. We'll show you how much of a beast this thing can actually be if you use your armor correctly, and how you can kind of carry a team, or try to carry a team, I guess, in this game, and really just be a fortress that has to be dealt with. So here we are in game with the Sinop, and we are on Trap, a relatively high tier map. So we are actually middle tier, which isn't too bad, but it will show us against some bigger tier shells, some big shells, some higher tier ships, and shows you a good kind of showing of what the ship can actually do. Lots of cruisers for us to pick on, and again, this ship having a good mix of horns off to the left, but also a good mix of stealth, maneuverability, and of course, if you can get punishing within that 12-kilometer range, you can definitely get some help and be pretty dang good with deleting ships off the planet. So this is something we've seen a lot with the Russian battleships, and it's something that is going to be definitely a problem that I see going forward. But this is where I kind of feel like 12 kilometers starts to fit in. Now, if you've seen my video on both the tier 5 and the tier 6, I felt like those were definitely going to be a tad too strong when it comes to those tiers because the maps are so much smaller. I think that maybe the 5 needs to be around the 8-kilometer mark. I feel like the 6 needs to be around the 10-kilometer mark, just because of the range of the maps, the size of the maps, the speed. You tend to be there. This is where I started to see the 12-kilometer range be like kind of normal. This is where I found being in a spot that 12 kilometers for the size of the map tend to be pretty proportional. And you had to, extend a tad more than you normally would to get that buff. So this is where I feel like the ship itself, or the actual buff, the Russian dispersion buff, is definitely going to be acceptable. I just feel like it's not as bad or not as overpowered when it comes to the lower tiers. But this one, you are going to be spending more time outside that range, so you have to look at the ship itself there. Still, I feel like this is a bit of a bummer. Not the best radar in the world, because nothing obviously would have been within that range, but hey, he popped it, so at least he's having fun. So this is the first tier where you notice you're going to definitely start being out of that 12-kilometer buffed range. Tier 5, you're almost always in it. Tier 6, you're in a decent amount. So you're going to have to look at this ship with that kind of dispersion being kind of the norm. But overall, I found the ship to be extremely fun. Again, as you see, the shot was a little lofty, so it takes a little while to get used to. But you'll see when I get into a spot here later in the game about just how tanky this ship is. And being able to do kind of all that, negate that much damage, and then getting into a spot that can be extremely strong is maybe a bit of a problem going forward. The Sinop, although very fun to play, giving it too much for a tier 7 ship that not really other tier 7 battleships have is a bit of a problem. So I think we get a little robbed here. He's in this perfect little spot, and there you saw the before and before and the after for the dispersion. There's that cruiser level dispersion, and yeah, it's extremely good. Also, I really wanted to push B cap right here. I thought it'd be pretty decent. I will gladly brawl in Nagato if I need to, but the Atlanta as well as the Shira is going to be a bit of a problem. But the ship itself, though, once you got used to the trajectory of the shells, because they're a tad slower than what they would normally be, you kind of felt at home, and you felt, I wouldn't say almost invincible, but you definitely do feel pretty strong. And this is where you start seeing the 406s be much better. Also, I did notice myself waiting on salvos a lot more, because of waiting for ships to get in that 12-kilometer range. But this is against Nagato, and that's that 406 shell, which you'll be able to get in an unfavorable shots. I mean, that's 6 full pens, although 6 full pens for 9,000 damage seems a little low, but those 406s are going to let you be able to pen a lot more than you normally would. Man, I would have loved to push this cap, and this cap probably would actually save this game for us. But that Shira being there is a bit of a problem. But we dropped the first 2 ships. It's going to be kind of a pattern when it comes to this, and this game was a bit of a bummer. But we have kind of a last stand when it comes to it. You also see what Russian battleships can do to DDs. This happens all the time, and again, I think I've talked about this in basically every video. These things are so punishing when it comes to destroyers and when it comes to it. So they're going to kind of single file here. The Atlanta's trying to get torps on me, but we got that 12-kilometer buff definitely within that range, and down he goes. So still not going to push in when it comes to the DD, and we'll take down that ship as well. Hopefully our team can kill that Baltimore. That's been a thorn in our spine, and I was hoping this Atlanta would push this cap so we can kill this DD, or else so I'm just perma spotted right now. But with the size of maps compared to the 12-kilometer, I think this is really the real good bit. Maybe still 12 kilometers might be a tad too much, because when you get those middle tiers, 12 kilometers seems to be good when you're going against these high tier maps, but again, those middle tiers might still be just too strong. Think about that 12-kilometer range on something like Two Brothers, Estuary, something like that, where you just tend to spend more time against those. And I don't like this buff. I like this buff because it's unique. That's very cool. They might just need to tone down the overall accuracy, because the cruiser level dispersion, in my opinion, is just so much, and I feel like I'm stuck on this gosh darn beach. Also, you can see right here is the turret traverse that this ship gets, and I'm surprised we actually missed those. I did take a blind shot though, and gonna start pumping in some damage against all these ships. But again, a good mix of 406s and good armor, and I remember I take a bunch of damage here. So you'll see now you can only do so much when it comes to HE. So when Bismarcks and everything are launching HE, I can only do so much. But what I'm trying to do is get a nice shot on this. So that's only so negatable. Again, only having so many repairs, so you tend to stick on more fire. But watch the damage when it comes to the AP. And again, there's a lull pen. Probably 356s would have bounced on that. And also the turrets are here. So this is a situation you definitely don't want to be in. This is the biggest weakness of this line, and that is the broadside of giving to battleships. So he's going to give us a nice little smack here. There's a nice little salvo right there. So that is where you want to avoid when it comes to this entire line, is giving up broadside and not being able to take that, that dispersion. Or I guess put in that dispersion. There you go. There's that cruiser level dispersion against the broadside target. He hit me for 13. I hit him for 21 almost. And there's the Shira. So I could actually moved a lot faster, which was a bit of a bummer. But we traded a lot of life there. Again, have to sit on more single fires than you normally would when it comes to this. And you want to get into that bow tanking situation if you really can. But just being able to bounce a lot. Besides, if you take away that almost 14-15k salvo, whatever it was, we didn't really take any damage there, even with the fires. So that's pretty dang good, actually, and why I feel like this thing is just super tanky. You'll see us do like a last stand at the end of the game, and my god, is it pretty nutty about how much damage you can just nullify with this armor. Nothing really feels as tanky as this. Obviously, you can get situations of the Sharn horse being extremely good in spots like this and pumping out a bunch of damage, but or not taking really citadels, but you take the high alpha damage. This, with that armor layout as we saw earlier, just really negates just so much. If you can use the armor productively and not give that broadside, I don't know if there's really like a battleship that really kind of knocks you out. I mean, you could get into a spot where obviously the Sharn horse could push in and do some damage that way with its torps. Same with the Gneisenau now. But outside of that, I think you just kind of put so much damage into all these ships that it's going to be hard set if you are bow tanking, unless your guns get knocked out, for something at that tier to really beat you. I always love when they add something like new to this. I always wonder how it would do in a rank situation, and I feel like because of how slow rank can be and how punishing you need to be in short little windows of damage, this thing might be one of the best ones, obviously. So still work in progress. Their stats are subject to change, and I think they will going forward. I think this ship is a tad too strong for tier 7. There's no real downside to the ship besides being broadside, but I mean, kind of everything's weak being broadside. So as we snag that Algeria again with this unique buff that we've seen nowhere else, it's really tough to kind of balance out through what this ship potentially could do. Indianapolis shooting at a dead ship that's already dead, but we're gonna kind of get into a spot where hopefully we just kind of make a move here. And again, this is where we're just going to have to kind of post up. I'm worried about that Shira. We got the Tirpitz coming south side. Again, our Indianapolis shooting at the dead ship that's been dead for a bit. So not really helping us out too much there, but as long as he's having fun. And here we go. And again, one of my major fears about this ship is about this line in general is that it kind of kills off German battleships. And the main reason why is the German battleship line is known for being a brawler line and close range when it comes to it. There's not really much the small caliber shells can do to the Russian line, and obviously this is a bad example. He's giving me lots of broadside, but still I feel like the German line itself is just going to be, I feel like there's almost no reason, because it's going to be hard to do a bunch of damage to this. You're almost going to be stuck, especially if something's bow in. This is a tier 8 versus a tier 7, and I wasn't really ever scared of this ship. We have that 100mm plate and that 125, the 300 on the side as well. There's not much I'm really nervous about. I think we just kind of bounce. I think he puts out a salvo on me, and you can see our secondary is pumping a lot of damage. We've almost lost no damage against a tier 8 ship, and we're gonna pump that right there. Like, obviously not the most skilled player to show off as a good example, but definitely a situation where if he would have shot, we would have bounced all of the shells because of our armor level. And really just not being scared of the quote-unquote brawling line is that's one thing I'm nervous about this line, is it's taking away an identity of an entire battleship line. Now, before I get some people that are talking about that they love the low tier, they love German battleships. Yes, we get it. There's still German battleship people that love German battleships, and that's awesome. I'm happy that you guys like that line. That line is definitely needs to see some love, because overall it's just not that good. It's losing its identity, and this is one thing I fear for this line going forward, is this line, which is known for being extremely tanky compared to kind of what the German. I'm a little bummed that our Bismarck maybe didn't go south. We could have probably split up here and maybe gotten some going. And there goes our last pair. But even against the Nelson also having 406 shells, and we were able to just shake that off. Nothing he really could have done, and I think we shake off that as well. So there's a good example of how tankiness, that's the same level, that's the same caliber gun, and nothing he could have really done. So 3 kills right there. And the rest of this game is going to be me pretty much taking a bunch of damage because the team was a tad slow on rotating over. I mean, I guess I could have just hedged my bet when it came to pushing in early, and it would have been nice if our Bismarck maybe got this ram, but it's hard to ram against a Tirpitz when it comes to Battleship versus Battleship. He has these things called torps. But 160k right now, we're still popping off with our shots. Again, we haven't really lost that much damage, so using our armor, we're angling away now and trying to get our shots on this. Some Tirpitz shells going in, and again, we bounce it. So that's something that I feel like this line might see going forward, and I'm surprised to actually see a bounce right there for him. Again, Shira there. So these lines are going to be pretty nasty when it comes to the storms. So because you want to push in, it promotes pushing in, and really this line is going to be nasty when it comes to cyclones and those other storms as well. Again, at tier 8 we start to get the radars, the 15-kilometer radars that spot the battleships. A lot of people are calling them useless, but if I had the radar right now, I potentially could push in against those Tirpitz. Tier 7, the Sinop, it seems like it's just so tanky. And then on top of that, getting the dispersion buff, and on top of that, you know, taking no damage, and it seems like kind of this really crazy jack of all trades. Like when you talk about the only weakness of the ship that you can actually bring up is that it lack of fire control, but since you're so accurate, you can get away from some of these other skills and just kind of base your captain around it. So you can prepare for that. We knock out one of his torp tubes already too, and you can kind of spec your captain around. You don't need a bunch of other stuff. You have the fighter planes, you can maybe drop AFT for a more survival scenario. And again, we're just going to keep bouncing all the AP of even tier 8 ships. So the Sinop to me feels a tad overtuned, too forgiving for getting into brawling situations. Again, going against another German battleship, and I'm just not really scared. We just eventually beat him over time, because we're consistently letting one fire burn. You do that almost exclusively in most situations with the Russian battleship, so maybe he eventually burns me down. I mean, there's the first, he got 2 overpens on something there, but eventually maybe he burns me down with his secondaries. I'm not sure, but never am I really nervous about German ships, besides his torps. Obviously he has torps, so that's the one thing I'm most nervous about. But the rest of this game, though, is just me tanking a bunch of damage, and it really just shows what this ship can do, and just how good it is at basically being just it's like a fortress. It really is. Could have maybe pushed B-cap a little sooner and maybe pushed the ships north, taking out that Nelson maybe a bit sooner, saving a couple ships. Hindsight, though, we didn't know where that Shira was, so I can't really push into a Shira and just get absolutely wrecked. And the Nelson kind of chased some ships north. Maybe if we worked together, we could have done something. And but overall, I feel like it's just too rewarded, the ship. I feel like there's not really a downside other than normal. And again, Russian ships versus destroyers. Yeah, we're gonna light him up a little bit. We got almost 7 out of 9 shells. Pretty dang good. Again, fully adrenaline rushed out of our minds right now, and he's gonna end up being able to kill us off. So nothing we can really do here, but a pretty solid game. Again, watch that potential damage, over 2 million now. I think we get to about 2.5, and we're trying to get that last little kill on this DD. We're gonna bring it home, solo warrior, boys, easy peasy, shooting over the village right there, and we actually snagged him once, so he was extremely low. But still, a blast to play this ship. I like, again, the pluses of this line. I like that they promote aggressiveness. I like that they reward aggressiveness. But you have to be careful with rewarding aggressiveness without giving it that much of a reward. Now, this line will take a little while to get used to, for both not giving up broadsides, being a bit more of a bit aware of your surroundings, because there's not a line of battleships in this game that get more punished for being broadside than the Russian battleships. As you saw, I was very aware of where I was moving. I was very aware of my surroundings, and but still, I feel like there's just too much upside on this line, especially at this ship at tier 7. It doesn't feel like a tier 7. It feels like I don't even know. I was going against tier 8 ships and not worried about tier 8 ships. So anyways, It's good. The ship is really good. Again, work in progress. There's stats subject to change. Maybe we're going to see something outside of just them maybe nerfing the overall Russian dispersion buff. It's probably going to have to be some kind of armor change. But if you take away the tankiness of this line, I think you just end up making a pretty mediocre line in general. So, but the outside of the tankiness of the line and the accuracy buff, if you touch those too much, I'm not sure what this line is going to bring. So luckily I'm not the balancing person for this. It's going to be on Wargaming for that, but I really do feel like we have something unique here, but this is a good example of something that's just a tad too strong, especially for its tier. It feels like you are it feels like you're a big boy playing against the little kids, because you're just kind of picking on everybody at this tier. I mean, there's nothing the other tier 7s could have really done compared to this ship. But anyways, guys, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this preview of the Sinop, the tier 7 currently work in progress Russian tech tree battleship. And that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.